Okay. Let me just check a few things, make sure everything is playing correctly. Let me make sure the audio and everything is on. Give me just a second. Give me just a second. How y'all doing though? How y'all doing? I know it's been a while since I actually made a video like this. If you've been following, I've been posting my morning motivation, my short stories, doing the 365 stories in 365 days. And but now we gotta get back to the teaching. You understand what I'm saying? We got to get back to the teaching. And y'all know me, I like to teach history. That's my thing. My thing is history. So if y'all just give me a second. Uh, let me see. Let me see. Okay. Yeah, everything going good. Everything going good. So y'all see the title on there. We're going to be talking about slavery after slavery, Democrats and the KKK working together to illegally enslave blacks. That's right. We're going to be talking about slavery after slavery, Democrats and the KKK working together to illegally enslave blacks. Now, y'all give me just 1 second. Let me blow this up. Hold on. Let me blow this up. Do do do. There we go. There we go. So what am I talking about? Slavery after slavery. Democrats and the KKK working together to illegally enslave blacks. Right now, especially with Joe Biden in office and Trump seeming to run again, the country is kind of politically charged. Everybody is talking about politics. Everybody is talking about Republicans and Democrats, and everybody is talking about who they're going to vote for. And it seems like the African American community is becoming disenchanted, I would say, with the Democratic Party. And individuals are starting to point out that they don't believe that the Democratic Party has the best intentions for the African American segment of our population. And I just want to point out something to you guys, and it's something that a lot of you already know because a lot of you are very, very historically astute, and you've done your research and you've done your study. So I'm not going to be telling you much new, but historically speaking, the Democratic Party never really was for black people in the first place. They never really cared about African Americans. In fact, it was the Confederacy. When you go back to around the time period of the Civil War, it was the Confederacy and the Democrats who were working to keep black people enslaved. And even after the Civil War, even after the Emancipation Proclamation, even after black people were freed from the bonds of enslavement, you still have Democrats illegally enslaving blacks and working to disenfranchise blacks who were now getting the rights of suffrage. So even during the Reconstruction era, when blacks were first beginning to get their ability to vote, you had individuals within the Democratic Party working hand in hand with the KKK to suppress their vote, to intimidate them from voting, punish them for trying to vote. But you also even had Democrats politically elected Democrats. I'm going to show you a governor here in a second. Politically elected Democrats working hand in hand with the KKK to keep black people from voting, but also still illegally enslaving blacks. Even knowing that they had lost the Civil War, knowing that the Emancipation Proclamation was a thing, they still were illegally enslaving blacks. So historically, the Democratic Party has never really been for black people anyway. So we're going to get right off into this, family. We're not going to waste too much time. We're not going to waste too much time. There's something I've talked about on my channel before. I don't know how many of you guys have looked into it, but there's something that's called, hotel family. I see you in the chat. Hotel. This finna be good. I'm not gonna hold you long, but this finna be real good. There's something that I talked about on my channel before, and it's called the slave narratives. The slave narratives. Now, what the slave narratives are, sometime in the 1900s, they started to realize that all of the individuals who the African Americans, the quote unquote Negroes, who were actually enslaved, they began to how can I put it? They began to go to these individuals and interview them and document their firsthand accounts of slavery and shortly after slavery, right? They went and interviewed people who were enslaved in Texas, who were enslaved in Alabama, who were enslaved in Georgia, right? Who were enslaved in Virginia, who were enslaved in the North Carolinas. And they found these individuals where they were now residing so they could get on the record the first-hand account of how slavery really was. And so if you could just go online and you could just type in, you can Google it. You can Google slave narratives of Texas, slave narratives of Virginia, slave narratives of South Carolina. And what you're going to pull up is like the federal documents that document, that document these interviews. And you can see firsthand what the individuals who were enslaved described and had to say about slavery. And so what I'm going to do with this right here, and I love going here because this is like the primary source. When you want to understand what happened during that time period from the perspective of the enslaved, the slave narratives are some of the best firsthand sources that you can go to. And there's so many of them that you can, it's a plethora of different topics, a plethora of different information. And so I was reading through the slave narratives and I came across one of a woman named Harriet Collins. Now, what stood out to me initially is that Harriet Collins was born in 1870. Mind you, the Civil War ended in 1865. And after the Civil War, supposedly, the Negro African Americans were free. And so I wondered why someone born in 1870, why would their narrative be included in the slave narratives? Because for all intents and purposes, she should not have been a slave, not in 1870, right? So let's look at some of the stuff that she said and let's make this make sense. All right. Look, it says, just so y'all see who we're talking about. Harriet Collins was born in Houston, Texas in 1870. Her family had been slaves of Richard Koch. Remember that name. Richard Koch, politician, Democrat, elected official, had been slaves of Richard Koch and remained with him many years after they were freed. Harriet recalls some incidents of Reconstruction days and believes in the superstitions handed down to her from slave days. Now, you're going to find that after the Civil War ended, a lot of individuals, they did still stay with their former slave owners, the quote unquote massa, they did stay and they did hang around. But what a lot of you don't understand is that they didn't stay. They didn't hang around as freed individuals. The institution of slavery continued on. And this lady, Harriet Collins, is going to give you a first-hand look into slavery after slavery. Look what she go. Look what she said. Let's get into this primary information. She says, my birthday done came in January on the 10th. Now, how it's written, if you're looking at the screen, it's written how the individual that was being interviewed spoke. So it's written in broken English because a lot of the slaves and ex-slaves, they spoke in broken English. This is why it's written like that. They wanted the typed out documents to be an accurate representation of what the individual interviewed actually said. So Harriet Collins tells us, my birthday done come in January on the 10th. So she was born January 10th, 1870, after slavery. Remember this. She was born after slavery supposedly ended. I was birthed in Houston in 1870, and Governor Richard Koch always, all us, is that's their way of saying always, had owned my daddy and mammy, and they stayed with him after freedom. Mammy, what was Julia Collins, didn't die till 1910, and she was most 100 years old. So her mother was born somewhere around 1810 if she died in 1910, and she was almost 100 years old. And she's saying that this Governor Richard Koch, this guy Richard Koch, this Democrat, had owned her mother and father. And even after the Civil War, he still owned her mother and father. And her being born in 1870, she was born enslaved to this same man as well, Governor Richard Koch, the Democrat. We're going to take a look at him later. Look what she say. She done, speaking about what her mother told her, she done told me many a time about how folks get all worked up over Marshall Koch's election. Mammy took lunch to the Capitol House to Master Richard, and there he am on the top floor with all he congressmen, and that Davis man and he men on the bottom floor, trying to say Marsh Richard ain't got no right to be governor this here state. Old Miss and the folkses didn't sleep a wink that night because they thought it sure be a fight. That in 1873, Mammy always say. So what she's describing is a political coup and a political takeover that happened in the state of Texas. But she's giving you this information from her recollection as an enslaved woman for this guy, Marsh Cook, or Master Cook, Richard Cook, the governor. So she's saying that she can remember her mother was taking lunch, or not really remember, but this is what her mother told her, that her mother was taking lunch to the Capitol House, the state capitol in Texas, to Master Richard. And she's saying that Master Richard was on the top floor with his congressman, and Davis, the man who was overthrown, was on the bottom floor. And they were trying to say that Marsh Richard ain't got no right to be governor in this here state. So that she's trying to describe some political conflict that took place. And I'm going to show you this in a historical record because everything that she just said is 100% facts. This is why I love the slave narrative. They're not lying. They're not lying in these slave narratives. They're telling you exactly how it was. So we got this governor, Richard Cook, owning slaves after slavery supposedly ended. This Democrat, right, owning slaves after slavery supposedly ended and holding some type of political coup to take power in the state of Texas. And this woman was enslaved to this man. She goes on to describe it. She says the old place at Houston was like most all old places. There was little small dormer windows, they call them, in upstairs and big porches everywhere. There was mahogany furniture and rosewood bedsteads. and big black walnut dressers with big mirrors and little ones down the side. Old Miss always, now Miss is Marcia Richards' wife. Old Miss always have us keep the drapes white as drifted snow and polish the furniture till it shine. There was softies with them cloth foots and lots of pretty china and silver. On the farm, out from town, there was the log house with quarters and the smokehouse and wash house and big barns and carriage house. So she's just describing what this plantation looked like. So she goes on to say the white and colored children played together all over the place. They went fishing and rode the plow horses and run the calves and coats and such devilment. The little white gals all had to wear sunbonnets. And old Miss, she sewed them bonnets on every day so they not get sunburned. Us niggers wear the long ducking shirts till us get about grown. And then us wear long dark blue dresses. They had spinning and weaving rooms where the colored women makes the clothes. So they still have the colored women spinning and weaving the clothes on the plantation. Let's continue. Old Miss, she showed a powerful manager. She know just how much, I can't really make out that word, just how much something in meat and sorghum it gonna take to run the plantation a year. So during slavery, right? During slavery, the clothes, the food, the medical supplies, the shoes, if they had any, everything was provided for the enslaved. Everything was provided by the slave owners, right? And so what she's describing is this same system was going on even after slavery ended. Remember, she was born in 1870. She was born after the Civil War. But this is what she's experiencing on the plantation. They were still enslaved. And again, it's going to make a whole lot of sense in a minute. She was enslaved after slavery to a man she calls Governor Richard Koch in Texas, a Democrat working with the KKK. So she goes on to say, she know just how much thread it take for spinning, and she something to setting hens and turkeys and fixing of serves and soap. She will show good to you if and you work and do like she tell you. I'm gonna say that again. She will show good to you if and you work and do like she tell you. If you work for free and if you obey, then she'll feed you. You get food, you get clothing, you get some place to stay. But Lord help them. Lord help them if she tried to disobey. Slavery after slavery. Many a night she go round to see that all was right. She a powerful good nurse too, and so was Mammy. So many a night she'll go around, she going by the slave quarters to check on them. Not to make sure everything all right. It's to make sure they ain't doing nothing that they ain't got no business doing. She say the white folks had good times. I'm sure they did. They'd go horseback riding and on picnics and fishing and have big dinners and balls. Come Christmas, they have us slaves cut a big lot of wood and keep fires all night for a week or two. The house be lit with candles from top to toe. And lots of company come. That's just like Christmas today. That's still the Christmas tradition. For dinner, us have turkey and beef roast and a big genie ham and big bowls of eggnog and a pitcher of apple cider and apple toddy. All us get something on Christmas and plenty eggnog, but no getting drunk. Now, don't let that fool you of her saying that they all got something for Christmas. Because when you start digging into these slave narratives, what you're going to see is that this is exactly how it was during slavery. And the thing that they would get, they was not getting no Tonka toys. They wasn't getting no Lego sets. They wasn't getting no James Avery bracelets. It wasn't getting the Xbox and the PlayStation. What they was getting on Christmas, they may get a new pair of pants or a new shirt or, a new pair of shoes, something like that. Something that was already being provided, because again, the slaves were provided food, clothing, and shelter. Although how horrible that stuff might have been, they were still provided that. So don't get confused, because she say that they all got something for Christmas. Of course they all got something for Christmas, but they got something that the master was going to have to give them anyway. And I'm going to show you that this dude that they calling Governor Richard Coke, he's just a low down, rotten, dirty Democratic slave owner. She say, I can just see Marsh Dick, Dick is short for Richard. I can just see Marsh Dick, tall and kinder, stooped like, with the big flop hat and long tail coat, and always carrying a big old walking stick. And he was carrying that big old walking stick because he got popped in the Civil War. I'm going to show you all them documents in just a second. Hold tight. But he carried a big walking stick because he got wounded in the Civil War fighting for the Confederacy to keep slavery. That's what he was doing. He fought in the Civil War. This Democrat fought in the Civil War to keep the institution of slavery going. And even after he lost, even after he got popped on the battlefield, he still kept his slaves right here in Texas. She goes on to say, he was show a brave man, and the big men say they likes that flop hat because they done followed it on the battlefield. More intellectual integrity. Now, I'm going to show you the proof, the verification of what she's saying. But if I couldn't show you the verification of what I'm saying, it should be important to note that you can trust what these slave narratives are saying, because they have no reason to lie to you. These ex-slaves, they ain't got no reason to lie. They just telling you how it is. They telling you how it was, right? And so even what she said, he showed a brave man, I'm sure that's what he said. But the dude did fight, and he did take some command in the Civil War, albeit he was working for the Confederacy. That's kind of true. Some people did follow him on the battlefield. She say he had a big voice, and they tell how in the war he'd holler, "Come on, boys!" And the bullets be like hell, and men falling all around, but that don't stop Marsh Dick. Now, he could have been hiding behind a bush, and he could have been hiding behind somebody else, but who's going to tell that story of themselves? What man who's trying to keep slavery going after slavery has ended is going to tell the truth if he was a coward in battle? But he may have actually been on the battlefield fighting. I'm not saying I got any evidence to say he was a coward. I'm just saying he was low down, dirty, vile, no good, low down individual who knew they got their butt kicked in the Civil War, who knew the Emancipation Proclamation was a thing, and this Democrat continued the institution of slavery. She say he'd take off that flop hat and plunge right on, and they'd follow his bald head where the fight was hottest. He sure was a man. And so I'm going to stop right there for a second, because she goes on to tell you a few more things that's not particularly pertinent to the discussion that I'm trying to have right now. Remember, right now, we're talking about slavery after slavery, Democrats and the KKK working together to illegally enslave blacks. So we have a first-hand account of a woman named Harriet Collins, who was born in Houston, Texas, in January 10th, 1870, to someone she is calling Governor Richard Coke. Okay, Governor Richard Coke. So who is the man that she's talking about? Who is she talking about? The man with the bald head, man with the flop hat. Here you go. Here you go. This the bald head man with the flop hat. You see him? Get a good look. Get the good look at this Democrat who's working with the KKK. Get a good look at him. And now we're finna go into some information about him. Now, this information I got is easily available. Just go to Wikipedia and look up Richard Coke, Governor Richard Coke of Texas. I mean, he's going to come right up. This is what he looked like. And you can read all of this stuff that I'm about to tell you for yourself. Okay? You can read all this stuff I'm about to tell you for yourself. But it says Richard Coke, born March 18th, 1829, and he died March 14th, 1897. He was an American lawyer and statesman from Waco, Texas. He was the 15th governor of Texas from 1874 to 1876. Excuse me. And he was a U.S. senator from 1877 to 1895. Remember, this guy that fought for the Confederacy, who illegally held slaves, even after the Civil War ended, right, was the 15th governor of Texas from 1874 to 1876 after doing this. And he was a U.S. senator after doing this from 1877 to 1895 while he was illegally holding slaves on his plantation. His governorship is notable for reestablishing local white supremacist rule in Texas following Reconstruction. Richard Coke was revered by many Texas Southern Democrats due to his perceived triumphs over Reconstruction-era federal control in Texas politics. His legacy is also marked by his use of the newly established state power to disfranchise African American voters and institute white supremacist policies. So this is what this guy is known for. This is what he is known for. His legacy is also marked by his use of the newly established state power to disfranchise African American voters and institute white supremacist policies. So what you got to understand about Reconstruction, the Reconstruction era is the time period after slavery ended when they were trying to rectify the damage done during slavery and put black folks on a more equal footing, on a more level playing field to give them the ability to improve their lives. So what they're saying is look what they say. They say his governorship is notable for reestablishing local white supremacist rule in Texas following Reconstruction. So after slavery, blacks started making some advances, and this Democrat here, he reestablished local white supremacist rule in Texas. So he overturned the progress that the blacks were making, all while illegally holding slaves on this plantation. And this guy was a U.S. senator from 1877 to 1895. That's crazy. That's crazy, right? Look what they say about him. I'm not going to read all that, but I'm going to leave it up on the screen. Like I say, this comes from Wikipedia if y'all want to run some of this down. Look, they say Coke was a delegate to the Secession Convention at Austin in 1861. So he was one of the individuals who was saying that Texas needed to secede from the Union when the Union was discussing ending slavery. The convention's chief concern was keeping slavery legal. The convention that he was a delegate to at Austin in 1861, their chief concern was keeping slavery legal. So this Democratic slave owner in Texas who illegally owned slaves, I gotta keep saying that, who illegally owned slaves after slavery ended, was part of the secession because he was knee deep in it. He was part of the secession convention whose chief concern was to keep slavery legal. Coke owned slaves himself. We know that because we got the first-hand testimony of the daughter of a couple of individuals he owned, and he owned her too. Coke owned slaves himself. He voted that Texas should leave the United States to join the Confederacy. Now look, he joined the Confederate Army as a private. In 1862, he raised a company that became part of the 15th Texas Infantry and served as its captain for the rest of the war. So that just lends credibility to what the slave narratives already told us. Harriet Collins already told us that she heard from her mother that not only did he fight for the Confederate Army in the Civil War, but he also had some type of command. Now look, he was wounded in an action known as Bayou Bobo on November 3rd, 1863, near Opelousas, Louisiana. After the war, he returned home to Waco. So he was wounded in action. Remember how she said he walked with a cane? He walked with a cane because he got popped. He walked with a cane because he got popped. Now look at this. Look at this. In 1865, Coke was appointed a Texas District Court judge. And in 1866, he was elected as an associate justice to the Texas Supreme Court. The following year, the military governor, General Philip Sheridan, removed Coke and 4 other judges as an impediment to Reconstruction in pursuit of Unionist Reconstruction policies. I already told you what Reconstruction was. So what they're telling you is, in 1865 and 1866, immediately after the Civil War, Reconstruction kicked off to where they were trying to put the African American community, the ex-slaves, in a better position, right? So the Union Army had to go into states that did not want to respect and honor the black population. They had to go in there and try to physically force them to respect the fact that they lost the Civil War and to allow blacks the right to vote and to treat them like the citizens that they were. So they're telling you that a military governor, a Union general, had to go and remove Coke, who had been instituted into a position of power because Coke was trying to keep the white supremacist tactics going. So he was removed. He was removed because he was a racist. It says the removal of the 5 judges became a cause to celebrate, and made their names famous, synonymous in the public eye with resistance to Union occupation. So that made Coke some type of a folk hero in his area. Because the Union Army had to come in and remove him for being a goddamn racist, the other racists in Texas they championed him like, oh, he's standing up to the Union. He fought in the Civil War, got popped. He fought in the Civil War and got popped. But even after that, he kept on with his white supremacist foolishness, and they knew he still had slaves on his plantation. He was still enslaving people. A woman born in 1870 was enslaved. So that made him like some kind of a folk hero to the other races, the other democratic races in that area. So look, they go on to say Richard Coke leveraged resentment at Union occupation to construct a democratic electoral coalition that ruled Texas for more than 100 years. So since Texas was chock full of racists, since Texas was so chock full of racists, he was able to leverage their resentment at the Union occupation being the Union Army physically coming into the South to physically force them to acknowledge that they lost the Civil War and to give blacks their due respect as citizens of the United States, right? He was able to leverage that resentment to construct a democratic electoral coalition that ruled Texas for more than 100 years. So basically the racists came together in Texas. The racists came together to end Reconstruction, to end the advancement that blacks made during Reconstruction. It says, through Ku Klux Klan attacks, intimidation, and public lynching of black voters and their white allies, Coke's coalition reestablished conservative white control of Texas in the 1870s. The 1870s is when the lovely ancestor Harriet Collins was born. So y'all starting to see it. Slavery after slavery. Democrats and the KKK working together to illegally enslave blacks. So with the Ku Klux Klan, they empowered the Ku Klux Klan to attack, intimidate, and publicly lynch, murder, hang, burn, shoot, kill black voters, black people who tried to vote. Publicly lynch them, attack them, intimidate them. And any white guy, any white lady that tried to be their ally, they attacked them too. They used that to help this guy Koch, this Democrat, reestablish conservative white control of Texas. So immediately after they lost in the Civil War, they immediately got right back on their white supremacist games. Disenfranchisement of black Texans was maintained with poll taxes and white primaries. Poll taxes and white primaries. Why poll taxes? Fresh out of slavery, you don't have no money put up. You don't have no savings put up. You've been working for free for the past 400 years. You understand what I'm saying? So you ain't got no money put up. So if they tell you, oh, you got to pay taxes at the polls and you ain't got no money to pay, they're going to disenfranchise you. They're not going to let you vote. And then with white primaries, what is a primary? Whenever you have individuals, like let's say with the presidential election, because a lot of people are familiar with the presidential elections. Let's say you have the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. You're going to have several members of the Democratic Party fighting against each other to become the choice that's going to try to become the president. And in the Republican Party, you're going to have the exact same thing. And so when you have those primaries, you have those are the individuals who actually have a chance at becoming the elected official, the president, the governor, the senator, whatever it is. And so if you only have white people in these positions, right? If you only have white people in these positions, you know a white person is going to be elected, and that white person is going to be elected, especially if they come from this stock, these Democratic KKK lovers, then they are going to institute things that's going to further disenfranchise blacks. And if they are racist, that's another way you're going to disenfranchise black Texan voters, because, hey, who you going to vote for? The devil or Satan? What you going to vote for? Evil or wickedness? You got evil on one hand, wickedness on the other hand. It don't even matter who you vote for. So your vote is basically null and void. You got nobody to vote for that's going to have your best interests at heart. So they say the number of black voters decreased sharply from more than 100,000 in the 1890s to 5,000 in 1906. Listen to me. The number of black voters decreased sharply from more than 100,000 in the 1890s to 5,000 in 1906. That's 95,000 disenfranchised black voters. As soon as the Civil War was over and Reconstruction began to try to give black suffrage or the right to vote, they immediately tried to take that right away from them. And they were very successful because of people like Richard Koch. Look, having been removed by Sheridan, Koch ran for governor as a Democrat. This is the history of the Democrats. Ran for governor as a Democrat in 1873 and took office in January 1874. The Texas Supreme Court ruled his election invalid in an extraordinary habeas corpus writ called Ex parte Rodriguez because the polls were open for only one day rather than the 4 days mentioned in the state constitution. So he stole an election. He stole the election. After he was removed by Sheridan, after the governor came and removed him from the other position that he had, he stole the election for governor. And the Texas Supreme Court ruled that his election was invalid, but we're going to see if them labeling his election as invalid, we're going to see if that meant anything in the greater scheme of things. The court is known as the semicolon court. That don't really matter. Look, disregarding the court ruling, the Democrats working with the KKK. This is the history of the Democrats. I'm not saying the Democrats never did nothing for nobody. They never did nothing for the African-American community, but this is their history. So if they on some foolishness right now today, they just going back to their roots. That's all it is. That's all it is. When you look back into history and people telling you about the KKK and white supremacists and the people that didn't want to, the Confederacy, the Confederate Army that wanted to secede, those are Democrats. That's the Democrat history. You got to understand that. Disregarding the court ruling, the Democrats secured the keys to the second floor of the Capitol and took possession. Incumbent Governor Edmund Davis was reported to have state troops stationed on the lower floor. I'm going to read that again and I'm going to show you something while the slave narratives are credible. Disregarding the court ruling, the Democrats secured the keys to the second floor of the Capitol and took possession. Incumbent Governor Edmund Davis was reported to have state troops stationed on the lower floor. Now look, when you go back to the primary documentation of the slave narratives, let me find it. Look what Harriet Collins already had told us. Talking about her mama, what her mother told her. She done told me many a time about how folkses get all worked up over Morris Coke's election. Mammy took lunch to the Capitol House to Morris Richard, and there he am on the top floor with all he congressmen and that Davis man and he men on the bottom floor trying to say Morris Richard ain't got no right to be governor in this here state, which he didn't. That's the record. He didn't. Ole Miss and the folkses didn't sleep a wink that night because they thought it sure be a fight. So they thought it was going to go down again. But this lady is saying that her mother took lunch to the Capitol House while Morris Richard, listen, this guy just stole an election. He just made himself the governor of Texas with all his racist KKK compadres helping him out. And he actually got one of his slaves, man, that should be free. One of his slaves bringing him lunch to the Capitol House. You cannot make this up. You cannot make this up. Look, disregarding the court ruling, the Democrats secured the keys to the second floor. Remember we said it was on the top floor of the Capitol and took possession. Incumbent Governor Edmund Davis was reported to have state troops stationed on the lower floor. That's why everybody thought it was going to be a fight. You see? The Travis Rifles, a Texas military unit created to fight Indians, summoned to protect Davis, were converted into a sheriff's posse and protected Coke. So they sent somebody, the Travis Rifles, a Texas military unit, right? They were summoned to protect Davis, the man who got the election stolen from him. But they were converted into a sheriff's posse to protect Coke. Why? Because they was racist too. And they knew that Coke was a racist boy. So they were supposed to be there to protect Davis, but they switched sides and protected Coke. On January 15, 1874, Coke was inaugurated as governor. Even after all this, it standoff in the Capitol House, pistols drawn. I took this. He got his slaves bringing him food. They see this. They know the Civil War is over. But still, on January 15, 1874, Coke was inaugurated as governor. On January 16th, Davis arranged for a truce, but he made one final appeal for federal intervention. A telegram, Davis is about to give up. The next day, like, oh man, I'm just going to give up. The people that was meant to protect me, they done switch sides. But he made one last appeal. One last appeal for federal intervention. The feds, please send more help. This racist done stole the governorcy. A telegram from President Ulysses S. Grant said that he did not feel warranted in sending federal troops to keep Davis in office. Davis resigned his office on January 19th. Coke's inauguration restored Democratic control in Texas. So when the Democrats regained control, the white supremacists regained control. And President Ulysses S. Grant did not feel warranted in sending federal troops to get this slave owner out of this seat that he had stolen. Right? Coke's rise to power, and I'm finna wrap this up. Just hang on with him for a little bit longer. Cox's rise to power marked the return of locally elected government in Texas and the establishment of a rigidly white supremacist Texas Democratic Party that would maintain a strong hold on Texas government for over 100 years. Now I want y'all to listen to something. He did this in around 1874, right? 1874. And they say that this rigidly white supremacist Texas Democratic Party that will maintain a strong hold on Texas government for over 100 years. If you go from 1874 and you count 100 years into the future, that takes you up to 1974. I was born in 1982. This was literally less than 10 years before I was born. They saying that the rigidly white supremacist Texas Democratic Party maintained a strong hold until a few years before I was born. These are the Democrats. Look at them. This is their history. Historians in the state praised Davis for this, reinstituting the white supremacists, and consolidated a version of Texas history that downplayed or omitted the liberal government that had preceded him. They basically tried to hide the fact that the white supremacists were ousted. You know, they rewrote history, basically. They rewrote history to try to make it seem like they weren't the bad guys. That's all it is. Look what they say about Governor Coke. Governor Coke had faith in his people, white people. He believed in the supremacy of the Anglo-Saxon race. He prided himself in the rich blood of the Southern people. As their leader, he fought back the tide of tyranny, equality, not tyranny, that was about to engulf them in the murky water of mulatto domination. Mulattoes are mixed breeds. He was a constructive statesman. He served his people with true fidelity and left Texas to rich heritage of a fruitful and useful life. His name is engraved on the scroll of immortals, and his footprints are in the sands of time. That's what Sinclair Moreland, Texas State Archivist, said in 1962. So one of the Texas State Archivist of 1962, Sinclair Moreland, he was a racist as well. He praised this guy, this racist, for reinstituting democratic racism in the Texas political system. So whoever wins the war writes the history. This is why history is so important. And this is why I write. This is why I'm the real bookworm. This is why I write so much. Because I understand that people will tell whatever side of history suits them. So sometimes you got to tell your own history. This dude is nobody to... He say his name is engraved on the scroll of immortals, and his footprints are in the sands of time. As a stone cold racist who illegally enslaved blacks after slavery had ended. Now I'm going to show y'all this and we're going to head up out of here. The 1876 Constitution, created under Coke's administration, is the current Constitution of Texas. Coke County in West Texas is named for him. Texas Governor Coke Stevenson was named after Richard Coke. So every state has a constitution. The Constitution of Texas, the current one that was created in 1876, was created under his administration. And I actually own a hard copy of the Texas Constitution. Now, this Constitution was created under the administration of a stone cold racist. A stone cold democratic racist, right? So look, slavery after slavery, Democrats and the KKK working together to illegally enslave blacks. Now I want to tell y'all something. This governor was not the only man in Texas or in the South that illegally held slaves after slavery was over. Slavery didn't end in 1865. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. Slavery continued long after that. And even slavery under a different name. Because what happened was after the end of the Civil War, The Reconstruction era happened, and that began to advance blacks to a place they had never been advanced to before. But immediately after that, the white supremacists, they were working behind the scenes to suppress blacks, disenfranchise blacks, lynch blacks, illegally enslave blacks on the same plantations that they were freed from. And some of these individuals held positions of power, political positions within the various states. And they were Democrats. That's the history of the Democratic Party right there. Slavery after slavery, Democrats and the KKK working together to illegally enslave blacks. So when you hear about the KKK, they Democrats. When you hear about the Confederates, they Democrats. When you hear about the lynchings that was going on after slavery, they were Democrats. When you hear about people getting arrested for nothing, Democrats. Disenfranchising blacks, Democrats, right? All the stuff that they accuse Republicans of today. Now, I'm not telling you to be a Republican. I'm not telling you to be a Democrat. I just deal with history. I deal with history. I like history. So everything that the Democrats try to accuse the Republican Party of, that's their playbook. If the Republicans doing it, they learned it from the Democrats. So I hope you all learned something. I hope this was interesting. You can just leave me a comment. Let me know what you guys think. But yeah, slavery went on long after slavery had supposedly ended. So what we're gonna do now, I'm going to get on up out of here, man. But I appreciate everybody for watching. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. And yeah, that's just the history, man. We're going to be back with some more history soon. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. Y'all have a wonderful day.